Happy Friday, Future History Podcast listeners and viewers. It is Friday, August 28th, 2020. How are you?
Good, very good. This day in history, I figure we'll open up with a little history facts for everybody. Very important day in relation to what's been going on now. 14-year-old Emmett Till, on this day in history, 1955, was killed for flirting with a white woman by her husband and brother. Basically, despicable acts. They
mutilated him, pretty much.
More or less mutilated him, and he was thrown in the river with something heavy tied to him, and he basically sunk. But he was shot before that. Terrible tragedy, and it's something that
history will never forget that.
Right, and there's not especially in 2020, I think any person of any color or race that looks at something like that and thinks that it's okay, and it's they're still racist in this day and age. There's no place for them in today's society. So
that is a fact.
Yeah. So with that being said, I think we've proven that since we've started this podcast, as far as our feelings on race, and there's no place in today's history for racism of any sort.
No.
The only way that the planet, and our country will move forward is if everybody is treated equally. And those days of basing things on color and religion and sexual orientation, everything, it just it's got to end. Now, it has to be done though in a way that is educational. It has to be done in a way that is fair for all people.
Right.
It also has to be something you can't force it down people's throats. And I think what happens when you do that is it creates the reverse.
Resistance.
And it's almost like it's creating racism by doing this. It's creating these separations where there wouldn't normally be separations. It's creating angst where there wouldn't normally be angst. And I just feel that if it was done in a more natural way, where, just like when children are born, they're not born racist.
Yeah, they're born.
That is something that is acquired as they're growing. And,
Well, I would say to all the parents out there who are sending their little children out with signs that say these vile things.
Yep. Such as, like, what do you mean?
Just the fuck the police.
Oh, okay. So I got you.
I've seen a lot of on social media, a lot of pictures of
to put
5
kids,
and 6 year olds with signs saying "fuck the police." I mean, that's what it says.
You lock the parents up. Call CPS for something like that.
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny because you don't see any parents with these kids. It's like these little mobs of kids, and I wonder to myself,
ignorant.
Where does that happen? Where does that come from?
It does nothing. I mean, if anything, all they're doing is just creating more problems. I mean, the fact that they even think that that's going to... It's almost like people just jump in to do something. I mean, especially with what's going on with this coronavirus still lingering on, where things are not back to normal. But
a little update on just on today's word from Mayor Bill de Blasio.
Okay.
I wanted to touch on for a second
one of our
as well.
favorites.
He was kind of alluding to the fact that, restaurants will be back next year. Next year.
Is he talking like January of 2021, or you mean like a year from today?
There was no specifics. It was, again, just him, flowing, and I don't know.
Just speaking without any real answers,
Yeah. And,
okay, so...
To all my my chef compadres out there, who were...
Very sorry.
Yeah.
Very sorry. It's a tough industry right now, like many other small businesses. I mean,
I always think of, there's 2 restaurants that always come to my mind that are in Manhattan. It's Café Boulud and Le Bernardin. And those are pretty much the 2 almost greatest restaurants in the world. Mm-hmm. And I know
what type of food? One sounds French.
Well, they're both French, both French owned.
Okay.
Daniel Boulud does classical French cuisine in a modern way.
Okay.
So it's much more appealing to your eye.
Right.
Whereas Le Bernardin is a seafood restaurant.
Oh, okay. Well, what do you mean, to your eye? Is it just colorful, you mean? Or
it has the beautiful flavors of French food, all that richness, but Yeah, you ever see like a dish that's like three-dimensional?
Yes.
It's like that.
So the presentation of
the
food
presentation
is,
is like art.
Yeah. Interesting.
So
yeah,
that's
French food is very, very rich. I mean, it's like
at times,
yeah.
and then there's also French food that's extremely light.
Never had escargot to this day. I've always, I just can't get. I mean, I've heard nothing, by people who like it. I've heard nothing but good things.
You know
about
what the secret is?
No.
They take. You know what a compound butter is?
No.
It's butter that's mixed with herbs.
Okay.
It's very simple.
Gotcha.
Just a funny name.
So it's just a butter infused.
Butter infused with herbs and all that.
Got it.
They kind of stuff the shells.
Butter is good on anything.
Oh, especially French butter.
Take a piece of bread, throw some butter on there, good to go.
So what they do is they stuff those snail shells with that butter and they kind of broil them.
Yeah,
so you can't go wrong.
I mean, there's very few things that you're going to coat in butter that aren't going to
be delicious.
Be good,
I think at one of the big fairs in the country, they do deep fried sticks of butter.
Yeah.
And it's kind of crazy, but people love it.
That is American.
It is.
Is that and the fried Oreo?
Oh. Ever have a fried Oreo?
No, I haven't. I imagine it's good. I like Oreos.
After about two of them, you feel like you're ready to go to the ER.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, Oreos themselves are just rich, but
milk's favorite cookie, so
it
they
is
say.
very good. It's toss up between a chocolate chip cookie and an Oreo for me, but you can't go wrong with either one. They are.
I think my problem is I'm always hungry, and I'm ready to just rant about food to you.
Growing
I'm
boy.
trying to hold my
growing boy.
Right. Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm growing wide. But
no.
It's interesting. One thing I really like is the French sandwich. You know how in New York we have an Italian hero and
yes.
it's like stacked
One
with
of my
meat?
favorites, an Italian hero. I love.
Well, what they do in France is they take a French baguette.
Okay.
And they slather it with butter.
Everything in France
is better with butter.
Wow.
So they take now. What's amazing is so over here everything is huge.
Okay.
There you have this really thin, crispy baguette.
Yes, their bread is very
slather it with butter.
Okay.
And then they take beautiful boiled or roasted. Again with the beautiful, I can't help myself.
Yeah, it's all right.
But they take this ham and they slice it thin and they just do one layer. It's not like a ton of meat,
Special kind of ham? Is it like
it's
French
either like
ham
a boiled ham or like a nice roasted ham, but it's like a neutral flavored ham. It's not smoked.
It's not a cold cut type of ham.
It is.
It is.
It is. But it's just obviously,
Is it dried out? Because ham, there's a big difference.
It's not like prosciutto.
Okay, got it.
It's more of like a deli boiled ham, but it's just better.
Gotcha.
So they do one layer of that, and then they'll put, what a cornichon is, a baby pickle?
No.
You never seen a little baby pickle before?
Well, we call them gherkins.
Gherkins, sure.
Same thing.
Same thing.
That's the thing. The terms are, I'm the guy, I walk into a supermarket and whatever terms will be on the jars is
Yeah. So, sometimes they say cornichon.
But are they similar to gherkins? Is that
it's the same thing?
Okay, got it.
And so that's the sandwich.
Okay.
It's butter, ham, pickle. That's it. And it's one layer of meat. And the bread, the butter, the ham, and the pickle comes together. And sometimes you could take beautiful French cheeses, Gruyere, whatever, and they'll add that as well. But a true traditional one is just the butter, the ham, the pickle, and the bread.
Wow.
And
the only other
phenomenal.
sandwiches that I've heard with pickles are Cuban sandwiches. I never heard of it in French. Interesting.
Yeah, if you ever want to have a little cheat meal someday, come to me. I'll make you one. And I make the bread fresh too.
Sounds really good.
Yeah, I make my own French baguettes. I don't make the pickles, of course, or the ham.
That's the best part of the lobster tail. When you get a lobster tail, is the butter.
Oh my God!
It's like an excuse to drink a cup of butter.
I have a full-fledged obsession with butter.
It's very good. You can't beat it. You cannot beat it.
And over here, we're used to the I don't know what the brand is. The blue packages of butter.
Yeah.
That's
Breakstones.
Yes. That's butter. But have you ever had
no. I can imagine.
It's night and day.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's like a yellowy. It's almost like a.
Well, they say butter was really created to just kind of hide the taste of bread in the Middle Ages to the rotted bread or the moldy bread. That was what butter was used for. And I mean, if it could make moldy bread taste good, I'm sure it'll do wonders on a snail or.
See, one of my biggest tricks. I'm going to reveal a little bit of my success.
Okay.
What I always understood when I cook is that fat is addictive.
Yes.
So anything you slather in fat,
it's always going to be
people are never going to be, unless you're really health conscious.
Yeah. It's very good.
People can't resist it.
Yeah.
So when you make a good steak, like one thing you'll see at like a nice high-end steakhouse often is they'll like finish it with butter on top, like a scoop of good butter.
Yeah.
And if it's French style, like it'll be seared in a pan, finished with butter. So it's butter every step of the way.
Yes.
And so.
Well, that's why the deli, the sandwiches that they use, they make with an egg is usually good because they always cook it on the grill. That's
with
got
a little
the bacon
clarified
fat
butter, bacon grease, sure thing.
So it's always going to taste good. But that makes sense.
That's like the light of my life, though. To be honest with you,
it's a very cooking has gone from. When I was young, you'd see Julia Child on TV occasionally,
and she was brilliant. Julia Child, she really was.
So, but that was the extent for me of the industry since Anthony Bourdain and Rocco. What was his last name? He had the restaurant in the city.
Mario Batali?
No. Rocco Disperito. I don't know. He was
Disperanza, maybe.
No, he had a show, and basically he was building a restaurant and. They had Bourdain and some of these other chefs come in to critique him, but he was a chef. He was like a young chef, and he came in and was supposed to purchase and turn around restaurants in these various areas. But you could see, cooking started to seep into the, cable TV and other avenues, and it's become its own industry now. I mean, with Bobby Flay and all these. It was, yeah. I mean. Due to this pandemic, everything's kind of been put on hold, but it was absolutely growing industry.
Anthony Bourdain was a special character, though. He really was.
Yeah, his shows were great. Yeah.
Not just his shows, but as a person, he really had a hard life at some points.
Yeah.
And one episode of his show that I really recommend is when he goes to suburban Massachusetts. And he talks to some people who had some serious opium issues.
Okay.
It was kind of highlighting the fact that now the suburban areas, people you wouldn't expect, have like vicious drug addictions that are kind of not spoken about.
Yep.
And he kind of let everyone in on his past and his battles and, like sleeping under bridges, whatever that life entails.
I'm aware of his history,
But he really was amazing. And I'm not a huge Barack Obama fan, but one episode also that I really enjoyed was when he was in Vietnam. And he sat down with a bowl of noodles and a beer and with the president.
Oh, wow.
And it was in Hanoi, I believe.
Huh.
And I thought that was amazing. Like, here we are 50, 60 years after Vietnam, right? 40 years, 50.
Yeah.
And
well, the
now,
Vietnamese love Americans, which is odd.
And what else is odd is that the Vietnamese have a slight French influence.
It was a colony
of France. Yeah, so like their language is very unique and
it's very interesting when you see these countries in Asia and Africa, and they still have remnants of the European influence. You wouldn't expect it. I mean, even Libya, it's got remnants of Rome and things like that, and it's just very, very interesting.
The world's been bustling for a long time.
Yes.
International travel and trade has been a thing.
It's the people. It's like civilians have been more brought closer because of the internet, but as far as relations between countries, it's been going on forever. Very interesting.
Yeah.
So I wanted to keep it light on a Friday. We've kind of been doing that since we started this podcast, and the plan is on Fridays to always keep it light. I just wanted to touch on one thing because it's something that I had brought up yesterday and I really didn't get too far into, but it was, we brought Emmett Till up at the beginning of this podcast today. And of course, we followed that by saying racism has no place in any sort of realm in today's day and age. A lot of the problems, though, really, the media, there's so much blame to go around with the problems that we have today, but the media is playing a tremendous role. And I want to explain something that I encountered yesterday, listening to the radio between coming here to do this show and then on the way home. I'm listening to I'm trying to get my mind off of all the stuff that's,
It's
obviously
very toxic.
due to the fact we're doing this show. I try to keep up more than I normally would with what's going on in the world, and sometimes I just like to shut things off, and I advise other people to do that because I think they'll have a lot better
Daily
time.
life.
Yeah. So I was listening. I said, let me check out sports. And as we said, in America, sports has always been a really, really nice escape for people, whether it was wartime, whether it was something bad went on in the country. You can always count on sports to sort of give you just a little pick-me-up. And I turned on the sports talk radio show yesterday, and I'm listening to it. And the entire way to this show, to the podcast, was angry black athletes and coaches calling up and just ranting on and on and on about the inequalities in today's society in America. And I get it, that's the response to what went on. I much prefer that where there's dialogue than people taking to the streets destroying innocent people's properties.
Yeah.
When I left the show here yesterday, turned the radio back on hoping they would pass the politics, and it was still going on. And I said, geez, this is hours of this. And it's supposed to be a sports radio show. So then a caller called in. First of all, very well spoken, very well thought out, putting his ideas out on the table very clearly, concisely, and it was he was very, very clear to state that he was not racist. He just wasn't. The host, this woman Maggie Gray, was pumping, and I mentioned her name because I was really taken aback by her yesterday, and I'll never listen to anything she does again. She was just inciting these people, with her, anger over this shooting, and I get we're all angry. Nobody wants to see somebody shot, and nobody wants to see even whatever issues led up to it. We just don't want to see that going on in this country. The goal is to stamp these things out permanently. But when this guy didn't agree 100% with what she was saying and just wasn't digesting everything that she had to say, she was basically telling this guy, who was, as I said, very well spoken, very clear, wasn't being nasty to anybody, and she said, you just, kept saying, you just don't understand. You don't get it. You don't understand.
Right.
And then said, I got to let you go. And just hung up on him.
Right. That's always.
And normally if you're arguing about a football game or a baseball game, whatever, hang up on the guy if he's. But when you're taking to the airwaves to talk about something as important as that, and you're going to dedicate your entire show to it.
Yeah.
For you not to give somebody the opportunity, just like you gave these other people the opportunity to rant on and on and on, I never email or message radio stations, or I got better things to do. I actually emailed them and messaged them that was so angered by what she did to this guy that I will never listen to her again, and I'm deciding to possibly just never listen to the radio station again. And it doesn't make it.
I'm almost on a sports boycott.
Yeah, it doesn't make a difference, if me myself do anything. But I'm starting to notice, a lot of people who I know that are big time sports fans. When I looked online this morning, a lot of these guys are like, you know what? I've had it with sports. I'm done. I think these athletes are. I don't know when this became so important for athletes to, everything that goes on in the country, we have to get their reaction to it. And there's some dignitary that deserves to, speak out, over everything.
I call it the Ricky Gervais
these guys
factor.
Never finished college anyway. They went to, they had full scholarships for their, let's be real.
Well, this is my problem with just about everything, is that nobody knows who anybody is.
Right.
And
right.
and it's
pissed me off though.
If you have a platform, you have the power. You have the power.
It's this constant, leaving shirts at home plate, or, whatever they did at Shea. Or
they came out on the field fully dressed at City, and then they walked
wherever
off.
it is they're playing.
Yeah.
It's
they couldn't do that if there was fans in the stands.
No. Well, that's the thing.
Right.
Is that the and with basketball, the ownership is allowing, it's great the players are taking the games off. Let me tell you, if they were losing that revenue for the entire game, the owners, nobody's taking any games off
without
any
to
repercussions.
Be another classic case of a money move. I think that the owners of these sports teams and these unions that maybe they have spot an opportunity where they can maybe rake in some cash.
It's always about that. It's always a money grab.
Yeah.
Or to not lose sponsorship. You know, it's like I always said, with everything that goes on, you got to follow the dollar. And even when it comes down to something such as race, you got to follow the dollar, you know. And even, you know, like I saw like Black Lives masks the other day. Like, it's just even, and when you talk about the environment, the minute they started really pumping the issues with the ozone and everything.
If anybody would really like to get a good image of this this global warming stuff, by the way, I recommend they watch the Joe Rogan Experience where Randall Carlson goes on by himself.
Yeah, or look up
because
Randall
he
Carlson.
really can break down for you, so you understand the actualities. And I'm not going to go. I'm not the professional.
Sure.
But if anyone would like to see that,
leave it to the professionals.
Right.
Stop. We don't. You know, these athletes.
Greta Thunberg isn't a climatologist.
Right. No, these people. You know, I mean,
she's speaking from emotions, crying on a stage, and everyone believes it.
It's just.
Do people not realize that the world has frozen over several times and heated up and flooded? Like, these things actually occur.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the science.
Leave it to the experts, though, that have, like you said, the real knowledge, the experience, the expertise, gone to these areas, studied these areas. It's everything. It's like people, now that everybody has a platform to speak their mind and be seen, they're all just coming out from the heart. I mean, the last thing I want to do is, when something occurs in this country, go to an athlete for what their reaction is, and the whole show is dedicated to what, you know, LeBron James has
and
to
I'm
say.
sorry to let
Who
you. Yeah.
cares what he says about anything?
And
honestly. Play basketball. That's why it's what I like about you. That's what you're paid to do.
Absolutely.
Stop the nonsense. It's like it's enough. And the more it goes on, the more it's like they don't even realize they're creating divisions. Everything.
They're creating a golem. That's the word for it. Everything
that goes on in this world has got to be. Everybody and their mother has to have an opinion, and it's, you know, it's enough. It's enough, and you can't escape it. You know, like I said, I tried to turn sports on. Said I'm not going to listen to any, anything about politics, anything about race. Let me just go, and I turn.
Maybe you got to get into fishing.
I think so. I mean, I get it.
That's why I do it, because when I'm out there, it's just me.
Yeah.
There's no news. It's me, nature, and that's
the only way to escape the noise.
Right.
You know, because it's on every airwave, when you turn on the internet, right away, it's about this stuff. And there are other things that occur in the world. Right. There are other, issues. And, of course, these are very important issues, and they have to be solved. But it's now taken over the entire
headspace of thought.
When I pass by the elementary school in my neighborhood where my children go, there's an entire sign. All it says diversity. Celebrate diversity. It's like there's nothing about education. It's
unity.
It's all about diversity. Diversity, different, being different, and it's to the point where these are things I never cared about. They never made me angry because I never had any issues with anybody. It's now created anger where the anger was never there before. But, I see it time and time again, and now I have to hear it on every radio station that I turn on where there's any sort of talk. So, you try to go to the radio stations that have music, and it's same playlists over and over again. So, nowadays you can use your phone and put music on. So my days of listening to sports, sadly, have seemed to be coming to an end because I just can't. Every time I turn it on, if I'm watching a football game, it's what it's about. If I watch, luckily hockey though, I could be wrong. I could be wrong, and if it happens where they are sticking, getting involved in this so much, then I will not watch that either. But right now, it seems like that's the only sport that's just focusing on sports. I mean, they were saying some team was canceling meetings or practice to just have meetings about diversity today, and people have been working together for years.
It's like, I don't get it.
All of a sudden in 2020, blacks and whites don't know how to coexist. Like, what the hell?
That's a great point.
Yeah, all of a sudden. I mean, when I watch football from the 70s, I see black guys standing next to white guys. When one guy scores a touchdown, they're giving high fives, hugging each other.
Well, how about you in the gym? You're friends with everybody.
Yeah,
I've never seen you have a racial issue in your whole... Well, since I've known you.
Yeah,
right?
I've never... I mean, I see my friend Craig. He's a black guy. I've known this guy for 20 years, 30 years, seeing him in different gyms and around town. And we give each other a hug, pat on the back. And then guys like my good friend. And I don't even look at the guy's color. We joke. We don't...
I'm sorry. I always go back to the fact, though, that it's whites who are causing this problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
plain and
that's
simple.
the problem. You know what? I'm not prejudiced against... I don't like whites anymore.
Right.
I actually am prejudiced against white people.
Right.
I don't like whites.
Right.
I love blacks. I love Spanish.
I love
don't
everyone.
like white people.
Yeah.
I like Chinese. I don't like white people anymore.
Yeah.
What the hell has happened to white people?
Yeah. Well, I see more and more videos now of people eating in restaurants, and all of a sudden a mob comes in.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And now they're basically making you get on your knees, put your hand in the air, and take an oath to this black guy.
He would see my plate.
I would smash them.
That's what would happen. He would have whatever he was while he was.
They might kill me.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you, I'm taking someone with me, like 100%.
It's ridiculous.
Enough is enough.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but we can't keep it light on a Friday. We can't. This is not light, and it's because there's nothing light going on.
If I was a black person, I wouldn't like white people either.
Right.
They have no balls, no guts.
There's a word for it. It's called a cuck.
Yeah, yes.
They're cucks.
Yes. They just okay, yes, we're bad. We're enough.
Right.
Most blacks I know don't even care. They're not even involved.
It's so funny because a lot of the black folks I follow on social media, there's no Black Lives Matter banners on their face. They want to actually be left alone about it because they're starting to get a stigma.
Yeah, they just want to live.
Right.
They want to be able to work, pursue a livelihood, and not have to deal with this.
Yeah.
These lunatic young white wackos, fuck off.
Right.
Fuck off.
I appreciate your honesty there because I feel the same way. And
I'm
I think
starting to dislike white people.
Yeah. It's amazing. White people now are turning on white people.
Yes.
Everyone's it's interesting.
Those are the only people, honestly, that I really just don't like. I don't like white people anymore. I just don't. I'm like, what's, they speak for everybody. They think they can
white supremacy. Yeah. They're the white supremacists.
Yeah, they can tell you how you should feel about this. And, since when, this is what everybody was fighting against. A bozo like you trying to go around telling everybody.
And intimidate people into believing what you think.
Bug off. You knuckleheads going into restaurants, you're going to meet the wrong people one day.
And you're going to regret the day you made that mistake. Body bag. Yeah.
People are tired
It's already starting to happen.
People are tired of it.
Yeah.
And I see it. I see it everywhere. People are tired of it. Nobody needs to be told how to feel. And it was like I said, listening to the radio station yesterday. She's on and on and if you disagree, you just don't understand.
Right, our intelligence is suddenly brought on.
You bozo radio host that sits there and talks about sports for 3 hours a day. Tell me your worldly vision and what the world should be and why you're so much more knowledgeable and why I should follow what you say.
Right.
And if I disagree with you, cancel me, cut me off, hang up.
I was always raised to be a leader, not a follower, by the way. And what I see with these white young liberals,
they're
and that's
followers.
They're all following.
They're tools.
It's like a bunch of little baby duckies.
Bunch of tools, man.
Yeah.
They have no guts.
Let me catch you with your skateboard trying to break my window.
Yeah.
I'll shove that skateboard up your ass.
Yeah.
Bottom line, I'm ready. Yeah.
Well,
on social media, you see it. It's like there's this cauldron bubbling and bubbling and bubbling. And you know when it boils over the top? We're right there.
Yeah.
We're right there.
And I think that, luckily, again, I'm ranting and raving, but at the end of the day...
get it out. That's what this is for. You could say, this is America. You can say what you want.
I do, but at the end of the day, I do think, like I said, you just have to be able to listen to the other side and make your own decisions. Yeah. Stop letting the media dictate how you feel about things. Stop letting people... anybody, even the blacks, anybody who thinks a guy like an Al Sharpton really cares about your family,
Nobody cares
and your
about
issues,
you.
he could care less.
Right.
He is about himself, padding his
bottom
pocket,
line.
his legacy, and that's it. And staying relevant. Because let me tell you, if race went away, bye, you'd never see that fool again. You'd never see him again. You never hear about him. You'd never see him. And if you want to be, if you're a black person, you want to be stupid enough to follow somebody like that, by all means, then all the power to you. But you're being used.
Right.
Because white people don't dislike you. Most of us, I would say 99% of us, do not dislike you. Do not think you're any different than us.
And I also don't see color.
I
want to tell you something very interesting. I was talking to someone a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, and we were kind of having the same discussion.
Yep.
And they were on one side, I was on the other side. And I said, well, I don't see color. Right. And this white girl goes, well, that's the problem.
Yeah.
You need to see the color.
Yeah, they're nuts.
And I'm like,
they're nuts.
Whoa.
They're nuts. They are nuts. And it's, like I said, it's we've talked about it before. It's a lot of the schools are creating these mindless like drones to just go out there and out into the world and just and they're rewarding this type of behavior where they these insane.
Well, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden just said that they understand the violence and they stand with them.
Good.
So now the line is drawn.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
All right.
You stand with them and
I'll stand where I stand.
Why don't you? Like instead of having people protect you every time you go to a speech or something,
I bet you the same thing would happen to those idiots that happened to the mayor of Portland.
Of course. They eventually
don't care.
eat their own. They
Right.
eventually eat their own. They implode. So I'm letting my blood pressure calm down because, like I said, I just wanted to. It's so.
I'm going to be honest with you. I've never seen you this. This. I don't know what the word for it is to be 100% honest with you.
It was really. Like I said, it's not even like I'm not mad at the blacks. It's the whites.
It's the white liberals.
I'm starting to become prejudiced against white people.
Yeah.
I've just had it.
Yeah. Coming from two white boys.
So blacks, if you want to take me in as an honorary black person, I don't like whites.
We don't have we don't have a home anymore. It's like
no. But like I said, I always will stand by what I believe.
If I ever saw racism occurring, I would jump in. If I ever saw sexism occurring, I would jump in. I don't tolerate that.
No.
But I also don't tolerate people running around with bats and pipes and Molotov cocktails, destroying things that don't belong to them, of people who had nothing to do with anything. And I'm tired of people downplaying it. Yeah. You know why it doesn't seem like we're hearing that much of it anymore? Because the media is downplaying it. Right. But if you go on social media and you see the real deal, it's happening everywhere, every day, all the time.
Yep. And it's something like I said.
And of course, people are sitting there on their ass just looking at the TV screen thinking, oh, whatever they tell me is what's happening. Now, do your research.
It's really, like I said, in the past, it's really the cities, some suburban areas. But you get out into rural America,
what's Kenosha like?
Middle America.
Is Kenosha like a big...
it's a big city.
It's a big city?
Yeah. But you get out into, some real meat and potatoes America. These protesters don't want to go out there.
You see them scurry away real quick.
Yeah, they don't want to go out there.
Nope.
It won't be a nice, happy ending. But regardless, again, like I said, I didn't... since we're on the topic of media, I wanted to touch on a person who I used to listen to growing up. I remember sitting in my mom's car in 1984 in the back seat of a Ford Galaxy.
What a year, 1984.
Yeah. So, to me, 1984 was when you think of the 1980s, 1984 to me was the most 80s year of the 80s. The music, the movies, the colors, like TV, everything sort of like
came
together.
Yeah.
And when I think back to the 80s, 1984 to me is like the year of the 80s. That was like the most stereotypical 80s year that there was. And some people may feel different, but myself living through the 80s, that's, being young, that's what I feel was the most 80s of the 80s years. And you can go back and look at the music and, it was very, very 80s-like. But anyway, sitting in the back of my mother's car, a certain DJ came on the radio and I said, who is this guy making fun of black, the accent of black people, and then making fun of women and making fun of, whites,
Calling
just making
people
fun
retards.
of everybody. Yeah, just
Right.
making fun of everybody.
And who was
this
that?
guy? And my mother's like, that's some idiot, Howard Stern. He's such an idiot. So, now when I turn him on, he basically is the man who he used to despise when he was on his rise to success. So even people like, all the stars that he used to make fun of for their idiosyncrasies and all the, sports stars and musicians, he would always, tease and doing all these skits about different races and ethnicities, and he'd make fun of himself. Now it's like he was always like the kid at the lunchroom that wanted to be at the table with the cool kids, but was always on the outskirts, and he'd lash out against them. Now he's at the table with the cool kids, and he won't, he's basically all about it. So he, I found it very, his family, he's no longer with his family. He has a wife who's a model. And
now he does?
Yeah. Not that determines things, but like I said, it just seems like his whole person was remade, and he's so politically correct, and he's just, it's like you're listening to a different person. And it's amazing because
when I watch him from like the mid 90s, I know that he was out way before then, but those are the clips that are readily available. But that was like
his major.
He was like a degenerate.
Yes.
I don't know what other word. I mean, like he really was like, it was all debauchery all the time.
He grew up in Roosevelt, Long Island, which was still is largely black area. He was he's Jewish, and he would, and these are his descriptions, not mine. He would basically get pummeled in school all the time and made fun of, and he was just like a geek in school, for lack of a better term.
He's still a geek.
So he kind of makes fun, and he makes fun of his the way he was growing up, and it really served a lot of material, where he kind of would always act like, he's scared of every time a black guy would come into the studio, he'd be like, man, I'm scared, please don't. He played it up a lot.
But he made it comedic.
One thing he always had, though, he was no dummy. One thing he always had was having a sidekick who was a black woman.
Of course.
What that gave him was sort of carte blanche to make fun of whoever he wants.
Right.
Because then anytime somebody would come in and slam him for being racist or anything, well, look, my sidekick, my best friend is black,
right. and a female.
Really, right. It was brilliant when you think about it. I mean, and that's why he's hung on to her like
forever,
as tight as he possibly can. And she's the one person on his staff that he doesn't really lash out against, or,
I noticed that they very strategically never clash.
Yes. And if they do, he's very quick to call her after the show and make sure that they put it to rest. And he knows that was really one of the major keys to his success.
I find it to be such a shame that he's such a clown now, because his voice at one point is just so iconic.
Well, what's funny is when you listen to him, and I encourage anybody I'm sure actually, when I say I encourage people who are fans of his, most people who are fans have done this. You go back and you listen to him from like the 80s and early 90s, his voice was totally different.
Yeah,
he was very whiny, higher pitched. He's developed a really good, strong radio voice.
Yeah,
yes. And there's interviews he's had that you can watch on TV. He's had a ton of plastic surgery. I
wonder how old he is.
He's in his 60s.
Not
early
bad.
60s.
Still pretty young.
Yeah. He's had a ton of plastic surgery. When you look at him from the past, he looks totally different.
I got a comment, by the way, that I'm kind of like your Robin Quivers. Just so you know, a good buddy of mine.
Robin Quivers, or was it Ed McMahon to Johnny Carson?
No, that was someone else. But a good
okay.
friend of mine was like, "Yeah, I'm enjoying the podcast. You're like your dad's Robin Quivers." I'm like, "Yeah, I'll take that."
Well, unfortunately,
Robin was smart.
Unfortunately, you don't give me any currency because you're a white dude. So
I know. you're
if you were a black woman, man, it would be great, But whatever.
Maybe I'll go. You know what? Say no
don't
more.
Do black
I
things.
am a black woman.
Yes. Don't. Do
now you can do that now. I identify as a black female. So everyone who does not accept that.
My son has become a black woman. Okay.
I'm a black woman now.
So.
And that's okay. And if you don't go for that,
yes,
you're an animal.
I know. So yeah, but that was brilliant on Howard Stern's part to keep a white woman at his side. Black woman at his side throughout his entire career, and also she, he basically has attacked every member of his staff. He's given them every, if they're not happy, then leave, that type of deal. But with Robin,
he was pretty ruthless with some of the people.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen, now that I'm getting into him a little bit, really cruel to some people.
And
like Gary Delabate.
Oh, brutal.
He was like
brutal.
Like I don't know if they had a little unspoken deal where like they probably did.
Yeah, I think Gary also knew that, any guy that's on that show for a long time knew, they
knew where their bread and butter was at.
Yeah. You knew who was buttering your bread.
Well, like I was telling you before the show, what do you say? I don't ever want to be pranked. I do the pranking.
Right.
He's a dish it out kind of guy, but can't take it.
Yes.
Which is bull.
In the early days, he took it, but he did it himself. Like, he made fun of himself. But if anybody else on the show went too far,
it was game over.
Yeah, game over.
Get out.
Yep.
Which I get. Hey, listen, he built his own business.
Yes.
But for someone who's got so much to say about everybody else, you better grow a thicker skin.
Yeah. And now what's interesting is when you look at the comments,
everyone says the same thing about him.
90% of the comments are by long-term fans who say this is the man who Howard Stern always loathed his entire career.
And here he is.
And he's turned into that man. And it's amazing. It's an amazing transformation to watch, because in the early days of this like social justice that's been going on, for the last decade.
Where was he?
He hung in there as far as he still was a little edgy and stuff. I think, look, at the end of the day...
Could you get away with a character today called Gary the Retard?
No. Well, he's changed his name. Do you know what his name is now?
Who's this? Gary. What's his name?
Gary the Conqueror. That's what they call him.
Gary the Conqueror.
Yeah. So his name was changed. Again, See,
that's my problem.
Yeah.
Is right there. Mm-hmm. Everyone needs to lighten up.
Yeah.
It's comedy.
Right.
So that's all it is. Howard Stern isn't a prophet.
He brought a woman in who was like a PR person, and she basically told him the do's and don'ts and how he can really solidify his brand. And all like people like Artie Lang, and this is for anybody who follows the show, anybody who has worked on his show in the past, they all blame this woman as one of the reasons that he's kind of become this caricature of who he despised years ago. And she's, laid out a lot of the groundwork for things he can say and can't say. But this was happening, once he started to become accepted by the celebrities. In the early days, he would, just
rail on him.
And once he became accepted and was accepted at the cool kids table, he
was the loser
shut it down.
who could.
And he used it. Like, what fueled him his whole life was getting picked on as a kid, getting beat on as a kid. It fueled him. And then what fueled him is once he got onto the radio, his act, a lot of celebrities used to pan his act. What he would do is he would send this guy, Stuttering John, in. And John would find celebrities, and he would ask them, like, really raunchy, ridiculous questions. Mm-hmm. And then they would play it on the Howard Stern show, and then Howard Stern would just get an hour or two out of making fun of the celebrity, how uptight they were and how they wouldn't, oh, you can't say that to this celebrity, he gets upset. And like now he's become that person. And it's just I don't even listen to him anymore because it's just a different, I
only keep up with Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
I just like when he would walk in there, hey, Beat.
Yeah,
what's up, Beat?
Yeah. No, the characters, look, the show was phenomenal.
It was great at one point.
It was phenomenal. It's just the people who were there.
It's like Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
Saturday Night Live is another prime example. They used to really poke at the man, at the man. Now they are the man.
Yes.
Now they're, and they're poking at the little guy.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know. I kind of find them to have actually some
once you're accepted
qualities.
In, like once you're, when you're on the outskirts, you get a lot of traction by kind of, like you said, poking at the man or hitting on, poking fun at these celebrities. But once you become one, it's very difficult because now these are your friends, and
right,
it's like
you can't rag on
so
them.
Once he crossed over, and it's impossible because he became so wealthy. He would go to all the Hamptons parties. They call him Hamptons Howie now. That's his name.
Oh, is that what he is?
Yeah,
What a
he
bum.
He goes to all the Hamptons parties and he's all the things he didn't like.
He thinks his shit don't stink is what it is.
Yeah. So, look, the guy, he's built an empire. He's got generational wealth now. So, he's achieved what most of us dream of achieving.
Yeah.
So I don't fault him in any way, and I don't begrudge him. He did it. He did it through hard work. In fact, what I used to find very motivating about him was the guy, when you think about it, he's on the radio at 6 in the morning. So if he's living on the island, he's got to leave his house by
4:30.
Yeah. So he was up by 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning every day. And he, come hell or high water, would never miss a show. Even when his guys would come in late or whatever, he was always there. And he's done it throughout his career. And he was a guy who was
it's also not a bad gig.
No, but even when he had crappy gigs, making $200 a week, working in Detroit and areas like that, he was there. Like, he was just a hard worker. And now he gets ribbed because he works like 3 days a week, and the other 2 days
nobody listens to him anymore.
The other 2 days they play like greatest hits shows and stuff like that.
Reruns.
Takes off weeks at a time for vacation. These are things he never would have done in the past. But again, he's an older man. You can't begrudge him. But the issue I have with listening to him, though, is when you're there from the beginning.
I got to be 100. I haven't listened to him, his contemporary stuff.
Yep.
So I really don't know what he says.
Yeah.
But I take your word for it, because on YouTube, all the comments.
Well, that's what it is. Anything I've listened to, it just seems like I never hear the funny stuff that he used to.
Hamptons Howard.
And the show is not even evolving like he's doing these great new things. It's like basically making fun of his staff, because it's the only ones that'll let him, that he could get away with it from.
Right.
Can't make fun of celebrities as their friends. He, hangs out with Jimmy Kimmel. That's like his best buddy.
He's another snake.
I can't stand Jimmy Kimmel.
He's having a lot of trouble right now.
Yeah, well, as I said, they eat their own eventually.
Good.
I
have no trouble with that.
The sooner people recognize that.
Jimmy Fallon better watch his ass too, because he's coming awfully close to crossing that line.
It's what happens is when they get one person and then they knock that person down and make that person obsolete, then they turn to somebody else.
It's a vicious cycle.
It is. They just they have to constantly.
They have backups. They got everything.
They have to be fed. They constantly. It's like a shark.
Yeah. They
just go through the murky waters, and who's the next person we can attack and knock down, and that's what they do. They're like sharks.
It's called cancel culture.
That's what it is, and it's disgraceful.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's so we had a pretty bad storm here.
Yes.
Had some tornadoes in the area, which is pretty rare.
Once you see it's a sunny day, and then all of a sudden the sky turns black, and the wind comes, and hail and stuff like that, you're in for a doozy.
It was pretty amazing, and over in this area we had some pretty considerable sized hail. We had a tornado touchdown. Maybe about 2 miles.
Being by the water over here, it's always inevitable.
Starting to see water spouts are starting to occur, like strange things that. So
this
I
is
wonder.
The time of year for it.
Yeah, it is. It's and we still have quite a bit of time left. And I know tomorrow the hurricanes that went through Louisiana, they're coming through too. Yeah. Which blows me away, by the way, because it's literally like they go up, they go through Kansas, and then they bang a right, and they're in New York.
Your grandmother, who is an amateur newscaster, weather person. By default, she just watches. I've never seen a person that literally 24/7 just watch.
Who also doesn't really go outside.
Right, just watches the Weather Channel.
Yeah.
So
it is interesting, though.
She gives me the weather reports like weeks in advance. Like the big event this weekend was that she bought paper towels for me to pick up.
Oh, okay.
And if we have a bad storm coming Saturday,
you need paper towels.
Well, no, you might not want to come out of your house to get these paper towels.
So come get them now.
So now already my stomach churns. Like normally I just kind of go through life and I don't worry about things that I can't control. I just, I'll prepare.
It is what it is.
But I can always count on her. Thank God, though, because if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be warned of these things. But she just likes to, So now I'm nervous about Saturday when I normally wouldn't have been.
I'm pretty sure that it's not going to be that big of a deal. But the problem is we have such incompetency here with PSEG.
Yeah.
The electric, what are they, utility
PSEG?
Company? Or what would that be considered?
Yeah, electric company.
Utility company.
Utilities, yep.
They lost a lot of public faith with Isaiah.
Well, that's the thing is, when you're a monopoly, it doesn't really make a
deserve
difference.
what you get.
But where can people go? What's the alternative?
Start a fire in your backyard. You know?
When it's a monopoly, there's not much of an alternative, and that's the problem.
It seems like we're entering this phase again where we are experiencing extreme monopolies all over again.
Yeah.
And
especially
it's not
after
healthy.
Especially after coronavirus, where all the small businesses started to get knocked over, and the rise of the big companies again, and you know.
I read an interesting fact about Jeff Bezos' money, where I think it could wrap, if you were to put dollar for dollar around the earth, it could wrap around the earth, I believe, several times, and make a 10 kilometer high stack of money after it wrapped around the earth. So,
one person to have, look, you know, again, when somebody starts a company from the ground up, and it's like, you know, you can't begrudge the person that
no, it's a great service.
But when
it's almost like that's like the person that created aspirin. They never wanted aspirin to be monopolized. They wanted it to be cheap and available to the public because it was such a critical invention.
Useful thing, right?
Right. So what Jeff Bezos is doing is getting rid of box stores and taking all of that business, making it his, and there's no alternative. And, you know, so it's like Teddy Roosevelt recently came under scrutiny, whatever, for his statue at the Museum of Natural History, which makes me want to vomit, by the way.
Shows the ignorance.
He was a trust buster.
Yeah.
So really, all these people who are screaming about Bezos need to be like, hey, we need a Teddy Roosevelt type of character
sorry,
here.
his statues were knocked over by these ignorant morons in the streets, you know.
Yep. It is what it is.
Teddy Roosevelt in my family is like...
legend.
Yeah.
One of the best presidents ever. And he was a progressive.
Yep.
Never a slave owner. Nothing like that.
He was
a modern guy.
Teddy was the man.
He also drank about like 5 gallons of coffee a day, by the way.
Teddy not only walked the walk, not only talked the talk, he walked the walk.
Yeah, he did.
When he was governor of New York, he used to patrol the streets of the city at night on his own, and you know, he was no joke, man.
Back then, the cops would be like snoozing on like a bale of hay, and he would come and kick him in the ass, tell him to get back to work.
Teddy Roosevelt is what the American male used to be, and that's why.
Well, now he would be a toxically masculine man.
That's why they knocked that statue down. We don't want that kind of man in America.
We want freaks. Yeah. We want freaks and cucks.
Freaks and geeks.
Freaks, geeks, cucks, and...
Not in this family.
No, not in this family at all. And I truly think it's a dangerous tightrope we're walking right now.
Yes, it is.
And yesterday I brought up the populism thing, and I don't know,
Look, I encourage more people that want to get their voice out there. At the very minimum, I don't care if this podcast has 5 viewers. At least it feels better to be able to just say what you have to say.
Right.
And just put it out there.
Yep.
Because listening to the radio show yesterday, just when that moron host cut that guy off just because he didn't agree with it.
That's not something we would do on this show.
No. So... Believe me, anybody that has an opposite view of what we are espousing over here, feel free to call in, to come in, and you will be given ample opportunity to state your
what I would appreciate
your point.
is just keep your comments respectful.
That's all we ask, please.
We're not looking for any kind of savage response. We're just looking for useful dialogues here. And
only way things are going to progress in this country.
We don't have the answers. We're just trying to get off our chest how we feel.
And I don't think people should feel how I feel unless they listen, they think about it themselves, and then agree with it. If not, then look, if you have a better
That's why this is America.
Yeah, I'm always open. You never stop learning. Oh. And when you stop learning is when you become ignorant.
Yeah.
You just, or when you think you can't learn.
This is one of my favorite quotes is Socrates. It's only one thing I know, and
Socrates.
that is that only one thing I know, and that is I know nothing.
Yes, that is fantastic
That's my favorite quote.
Yep.
And everyone walks around like, I know everything.
Yes.
I'm woke.
Yep.
You ain't shit, kid.
Yep.
So stop telling me like you know better than me. All right? And so
we've created a monster in this country.
We have. We have.
Now it's time to bury Frankenstein's monster.
Something's going to happen. I mean, so the election's coming, as we all know.
Yep.
We have the March on Washington today, which
wonderful.
I'm curious to see how it will compare to years past.
Yeah.
Hopefully
nice.
Violence doesn't break out. See, what I'm getting afraid of is they're starting to become opposition to these movements.
Yes.
And they're
That's
heavily
when the violence
armed.
will really, yep.
And it's...
Well, you can only poke the bear so much.
I mean, people got to defend themselves.
Yeah.
Now, some people are saying the kid that came over there and shot those people across state lines, this and that, he's a white supremacist,
Right,
blah, blah,
right.
blah. But he was attacked. He was attacked, and he was doing, in his mind, what he thought was his patriotic duty to defend property of people and to try to deter people from burning the city down.
Well, I think the problem is that a kid like this, chances are he was not going to be a militant type of person growing up. But when you constantly are shown these things, and when you're seeing cities get burned and you're seeing innocent businesses being defaced and destroyed, you start to create that opposition.
What I thought was interesting too is that the mother of the man that was shot apologized to the president.
Wow. No
Did you know
kidding.
that?
No.
Of course you don't know that, because
No.
they're not going to promote it.
Wow.
But she gave a public...
Jacob Blake's mother?
Correct.
Wow.
She gave a public...
Apology?
not apology, just denouncing the violence, denouncing the outrage, denouncing all of this and that.
Much
and
respect
she
to her
offered
for that.
Absolutely. That's a real person.
Yeah.
And people have to stop dishonoring these people who are getting shot and killed
Right.
by doing these heinous
Yeah.
things.
It's
Like Rodney King, what happened to that man was disgusting.
Yeah.
And what did he want? Unity.
yeah.
What do we want? Unity. I don't want division. You don't want division.
Nope.
So where's it coming from?
I think everybody knows the schools and the media, to me, are the two most dangerous things in this
And it
country.
breaks my heart because the free press is critical on what makes this country part of what makes this
Yeah.
country great.
Yep.
And it's like to have 50% or more, because now it's becoming where like liberals don't trust the media either.
Right.
So you have a huge portion of this country who does not trust mainstream media.
Yeah. Well,
And so they've lost public trust. How do they maintain?
the media?
Well, yeah. If they don't, if the facts are the facts and the public doesn't trust that mainstream
I wasn't
media,
aware that the liberals don't trust the media. I feel like they.
It's funny because when I talk to people in my age range
Yeah.
who are on the other side of the fence,
Yeah.
they don't trust them either, for different reasons, of course. But it's still at the end of the day, it's still the same sentiment.
Yeah, I feel like they're one and the same to me, but it's just.
I would disagree.
Yeah.
I would disagree.
I'd like to hear what they'd have to say about it. I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple buddies who are totally on the opposite side from me.
Yep. And
But
they
what I
don't
find
know.
amazing
It's interesting
is
to
when
hear.
we kind of like philosophize and get into these conversations, we end up at the same conclusion. We all, so it's like, I wish that was the case.
The
Maybe
media
from
has to be corralled at some point, as far as
I mean,
you
some
know,
and social media too.
yeah. Well, that's
That's a monster.
what happens is, it's very hard to keep up with technology and keep it under wraps.
Right.
Just, while maintaining individual rights.
Right.
That's the problem. It's like,
It's a new
there's no
age.
easy answers, but until this stuff that goes on out
In real life,
the fighting and the protesting, that's not getting us anywhere. So hopefully people let cooler heads prevail. And with that,
yeah, we're at just about an hour. I want to wish everyone a happy Friday.
Yeah.
I am going to be going on this
Great
evening
weekend.
doing an interview with a good chef friend of mine,
Very
and we're
nice.
going to see where that goes. And obviously, you're welcome
Cool.
you're welcome to get in on the
I
call.
think I might kick back and watch. I'm very interested. I'm on this cooking kick now. It's very interesting.
It's a stress reliever.
Yeah.
And
it's great.
it's nice to be able to look at something inanimate
it's
and
great.
say how beautiful.
Yeah.
It's
It's not
it's
going to
nice.
bark back at you.
No, it's not going to tell me to raise my hand in solidarity, right?
Very cool.
So anyway, peace and love to everybody. And
and
again, it was nice to be able to pay some homage to Emmett Till,
Yes.
because it's an interesting day.
Rest in peace, sir.
Rest in peace. And also amazing, the March on Washington today in rolling with that Emmett Till theme. So we'll see what happens. It should be interesting. We'll be back Monday. and we'll be in your face. We'll be rocking and rolling, and that's that.
Have a great weekend.
All right, have a good